afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Lunch with Dodie. And today I am so excited to have our special guest, Rose Hope, today. She is one of my most favorite people, and she is the editor of our resource guide, and she has done some fabulous things researching and taking care of this, our best kept secret, our secret treasure, our resource guide, because not everybody knows about it and knows how to access it. And it's got a lot of valuable information. And Rose is going to tell us a little bit about that today. And while I'm giving some kudos out to Rose, she's also our safety committee chairman, and she keeps us safe and everything, per the book on our defibrillator, making sure it's all, charged up and ready to go if we need it, and, getting us all certified for our first aid. So I just appreciate Rose and everything she does so much for us. And she's like irreplaceable. Rose, the fabulous Rose, take it away.
Thanks, Dodie. So good afternoon, and thanks for tuning in, whether it's right now or on demand later. So as Dodie indicated, the Senior Center has always had queries about resources in the area. And these questions come from both our members and from adult children who live out of the area, but have parents living in the Silverton area. So both of these groups are part of our audience. And today I thought I'd give you some background on developing this guide, the considerations of what we include, and then show you how to maneuver the resource guide. So in the past, to assist in repeated questions that people at the reception desk would get, volunteers had posted these handwritten and sometimes typed lists that might deal with housing or transportation, and one would be on the bulletin board, and another on the outside of a cupboard, and another on the inside of a cupboard, and another on another bulletin board. So in 2015, Dodie approached me about combining all these lists and expanding it to a somewhat fuller guide that emphasized local resources.
So Rose, are you saying we were a bit disorganized?
No, I mean, there's a beginning part to everything. It just made it a little more difficult to find. So initially, the resource guide focused on health providers and exercise and housing and transportation. And since this was done through the safety committee, it included fall prevention and disaster preparedness and driving. And the concept of health expanded to include this circle of health here that includes emotional, intellectual, physical, social, environmental, financial, and spiritual, so that all these aspects are part of health, not just physical health. We double checked every phone number and web link to make sure it was working before we published the first one. And then if services for something weren't available in Silverton, we included resources that were in Salem. And sometimes then we went further on in the rest of Oregon or the Northwest or the West Coast, and finally the East Coast, especially Washington, D.C. And also if seniors in Silverton used a resource a lot, we included that. So we have not just the Silverton Hospital, but the Salem Hospital and OHSU as well. So after the guide was posted, we began to get requests to be included. And it didn't take long to realize that this wasn't necessarily flattery. Most of these were from out of state, especially Florida. And in the fine print, I noticed it was considered something like attorney advertising, or there were reviews with the conflict of interest, or a topic that could be as easily addressed by some Oregonian. So 2015 was also a year which was the demise of many phone books that we'd become accustomed to. But we retained the format of the phone book with the name and the person or organization on the left and the phone number, and now also the website on the right column. And we tried to avoid having entries that crossed over two different pages. especially if there was only one line on the next page. So we tried to edit it down so it fit. So the first guide was available in mid 2015, and it ran about 50 pages, and we posted it on the website. But before the end of the year, we realized it already needed updating. And so we're now in the 14th revision, and it runs about 80 pages with about 500 entries. It also includes many tips on topics such as fraud. But entries may be duplicated. So if an agency is involved in more than one function, such as both transportation and housing, we've got them listed both places so you don't have to keep going back and forth a lot. And we selected a few areas to review in depth each time we did a revision. And we added, as time went on, sections on communication and hearing and vision, and sometimes we consolidated topics. We also held resource fairs to encourage more caregivers to list with us. And the first major revision was when Legacy bought Silverton Hospital. But the next major revision was the last one that reflected COVID. And so we ended up having to eliminate all the entries on exercise groups and support groups that had met at the senior center since we were closed, and many other organizations as well put functions on hold or held them on Zoom, and we did add some virtual tours into the guide. But mostly we welcome your comments, suggestions, or corrections, because this is a guide for you to use, so it needs to be useful to you. So now I'd like to show you the actual guide. So I want to share the screen. So now in the center of the screen, there's services, and the third choice below that is resources and links. So then we want a community health and safety resource guide. So this is the title page that has the wellness wheel that we talked about earlier. And then this is the title page and some disclaimers and so on. And the third page is the table of contents. So this is the kind of thing that we include. So it's everything from abuse and advanced directives and alarms down to transportation and the weather. So healthcare providers, and under that you can go to specific areas or just go to healthcare providers. So you see that on the left-hand side, there's things like acupuncture, and then on the right-hand side is a phone number and a website. Under the clinics, you wanted to get to the Legacy Medical Group in Silverton, then you would click on website, and that would take you to Legacy's Medical Group Silverton. And so let's try another one here. So if you want to go to transportation, you either go directly to page 69 or you can automatically go by pressing on transportation. So there's several divisions within this about whether you're driving yourself and ways to improve your driving skills, because a lot of insurance companies will give you a discount if you keep these tests up to date, or maybe you want to stop driving, and some people who provide private transportation. And then there's public transportation. So if you wanted to go to the Silver Trolley, you would then click on their website. So here's the Silver Trolley on Silverton, City of Silverton site. Then there's a section for veteran services. So if you click on that, you come to veteran services, and we have their crisis lines and their service dogs under battle buddies. And you would also find battle buddies under the section of animals and various things that do with that. Tobacco cessation groups that are specific for veterans. There's, connections to some of their clinics, and there's also homes for veterans that are listed here. So if we wanted to go to the one in Lebanon, for instance, here's a page for the Oregon Veterans Home in Lebanon. So anyway, that's a quick guide in how to get around this. And like I say, we welcome any of your suggestions about how to improve this, or something you'd like to see added, or something you think doesn't need to be done, or if we've made a typo or something, which is our great fear, that we get it corrected as soon as possible. So, does anybody have any questions?
I know you've updated it to be with some COVID-19 guidelines. And I know we've had emergency preparedness in there and earthquake preparedness. So what else could we be prepared for, Rose?
Well, under disaster preparedness, we've got first aid training with the Red Cross and
Yes.
city and county's emergency management information, and how you can sign up to be on these citizen alerts, which became very important during the fires. There's some general things that are available from the National Institute on Aging. And then, of course, we're all trying to downsize. And so there's information here on recycling things and various places that you can take either specific items or general items for recycling. So anyway, there's a lot of material here.
I know we're always looking to update for caregivers, drivers, transportation. And I know you try to keep your revisions down to once a year, but
oh no, we've never done that. We've never been able to do that.
no. It's great that you work so hard on keeping us up to date and safe, Rose, and trying to coordinate all of the different areas of resources we have. Just when we get something done, something new comes up, huh?
Well, actually, it's been kind of amazing how often businesses and organizations will change their name or change their address or go out of business. Of course, this year has had even more changes. This is for general resources that are pretty much available on an ongoing basis. But for, one-time events or irregular things, you still want to check our website generally, and the ad that's in our town, or ask Dodie to get on her email blast list.
Well, and I have seen a little bit of an increase in people wanting to ask questions, needing resources. I think COVID brought up a whole lot of issues people hadn't talked about, advanced directives, power of attorney. All of a sudden it's like I've said, it's a crisis situation. And so people want to get that taken care of when they should have taken care of it before it's a crisis. We are going to be working with a new lawyer though, Rose. I don't know if I got that information to you. I've been talking to Michael Rose of Rose Elder Law, and he is going to do free legal consultations for 30-minute appointments. The difference is we will do those via Zoom. Michael's office is in Lake Oswego, but our appointments will be here, and they'll be from 9 to 12 on the first Friday of the month. And we'll just take people into the Zoom room one at a time, or if it's a couple, and then they have their privacy and they can go ahead and discuss things with Michael. And of course, then we'll have to sanitize and disinfect the area before the next client goes in. Any other comments you want to share with us, Rose?
Well, I think that's an overview. So hopefully, if you go to this and don't find what you're looking for, let us know, because it may be something we want to add to a future edition.
That's right. And of course, like you mentioned earlier, if somebody goes out of business, or is no longer, doing those services, then we'd like to know so we can take them off the list too. Well, this has been great, Rose. Very informative, and it's just such a great resource guide. And it's I use the word hub. We're the hub of all things senior. And this guide just proves that we have accessibility to all kinds of resources. Here's a funny little story I will share. I had a call maybe 2 weeks ago for a lady needing her dryer repaired, appliances repaired, but she lived in Almsville. But she thought Silverton is close enough. So I pulled up our resource guide to look up some information for her. And lo and behold, the very first repair person lived in Almsville. And
Oh,
so, yeah, and so that was so cool to be able to refer her to somebody that was actually in her area. And she was so happy. She emailed me back and said, that was so wonderful. I really want to join the senior center. Silverton's not that far. It's as far as for us as Salem. I'd rather come to Silverton. And so that made me feel really good that we were able to help somebody even more than we anticipated because they were very local for them. Well, I guess that concludes our lunch with Dodie for today. And a big shout out to you, Rose. Thank you again for everything you do.
well, thank you.
No, thank you. Anyway, have a great day, everybody.